As you probably know, my name is John Weil. I'm Dean of the Honors College. Dr. Phillips is away today, and it is my pleasure to be able to introduce today's speaker, Marsha Powers. She served as Publications Coordinator for the Honors College for 19 years, longer than I've been here as Dean. She oversaw Areté, which had a couple name changes during that time, Collage, and Scientia and Humanitas, which also had a name change, I believe, while she was here. She's a graduate of Mississippi College, was chief photographer for the campus newspaper, served as yearbook editor-in-chief during her tenure. In the years following, she worked for a radio station, a newspaper, and a commercial photographer in the Jackson, Mississippi area. A stay-at-home mom for a time. She was hired by Honors College Dean John Paul Montgomery, who was actually the last director and the first dean. He was in that transition. Began work in January of 2004 when construction of this building was completed, and retired, sort of, but we keep bringing her back, in January of this year. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hi everybody, I'm really glad to be here today. Talk about one of my very favorite subjects, which is Honors College publications. They are dear to my heart, and I'm so grateful to be able to work with them for 19 years. And I repeatedly said, I have the best job in the world. I worked with the best students, people like you, the best staff, and did the best deans, and I was really blessed to be here that long. I'm going to kind of walk you through, my really bad PowerPoint, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the early history. So we're going to talk about the history of the publications, a little bit about their purpose, and about the success that they've had. Okay, so this lovely thing here is what was one of the early newsletters for about the first 30 years that the Honors College was in existence. They had this type of newsletter. This one is 8 pages, printed on color paper. Does have some interesting things about it in it, like upcoming classes, just a few little news items, little spotlights on faculty members and things like that, interdisciplinary seminars and things like that. But that was the way it was, something like this for about 30 years. And then, in the mid-2000s, we had a change in deans. Dr. Montgomery retired, and Dr. Phil Mathis came on board. He was a biology professor, but he was very English-oriented and publication-oriented. And so there kind of began to be a little bit of upgrading of the publications with that. So we can move on to the next one. Okay, one backwards. Okay, there's some of the magazines or newsletters that came out after this one. So at the time, back in 2004 in January, we started publishing two of these a year, which we already did really. And the page count grew with this particular one. This one had about 12 pages, I believe, and it had the nice blue on the creamy background. So they added, this was always, I thought was a fun fact, that when Dr. Mathis was here, he named his column From the Bell Tower. So, also about that time is when, about 2005, is when the Honors College was asked to take on Collage, the arts and literary magazine. It had been on campus since 1968, and so these were some of the magazines from back in the early days. They're just kind of all over the place, different styles. This one's an actual collage. So those are some of the early collages that came out before the Honors College took it over. But when the Honors College took it over, we came up with a consistent style and size. All of them were like this. And they were basically all about 32 pages, except in rare instances. But we used professional software like the Adobe Creative Suite. So it was a pretty nice publication, and they were published by Nashville printers, so they were published, and so they to look nice. Going back and going, I'm getting ahead of my notes, but by the way, when I was here working, I didn't make very many speeches, so forgive me. That wasn't my job. Let's see, let's start back at around 2008. That's when Dean Mathis retired and Dr. John Arvile was named Honors Dean, and he changed the newsletter name to the Honors Edition. You see that up there. And From the Bell Tower became From the Dean's Desk. But the most significant difference probably was the number of pages expanded, and the first issue was 36 pages. So we went from like 12 pages to 36 pretty rapidly. In spring of 2010, our little humble newsletter began to look a little bit more like a magazine. We had a colored cover. Still wasn't very high quality paper. And we had a table of contents, but the content on the inside was black and white with a little bit of blue. So we weren't quite there yet, but it was an improvement, a step in the right direction. Let's see. Then, in 2011, the Honors College accepted transfer of a basic applied sciences publication called Scientia. And they had only published it online, and they mostly published abstracts of student research. But when it came to the Honors College, it was renamed Scientia et Humanitas. It has been published in print and digital formats since 2011, I believe. And we still have going today. And they all look about the same. It includes research papers from all disciplines across campus, including the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And so all MTSU students and recent graduates are invited to submit their scholarship, either as independent authors or with a faculty member. Okay, then in spring 2012, the Honors Magazine took another large step forward with the color on the inside, and shiny paper, thicker quality, thicker paper. It's beginning to look really nice. We even have a little spotlight on the fish tank in here. We used to have a fish tank in the office for all of you who missed that. Unfortunately, it didn't end well for the fish.
Wait, I think they were rescued. I think we sent them over to another college.
Well, some of them were rescued.
Well, some jumped out of the tank.
Some jumped out of the tank. Since no one was here to rescue them at that precise moment, that didn't go well. All right. About that time, 2013, we had been having, Scientia at Humanitas had been having undergraduates for staff. In 2013, Dr. Philip Phillips, our Honors Associate Dean, he recruited a graduate student for editor-in-chief of that publication, and that just led to higher quality publications. We got a lot more graduate essays in there, and the staff was fairly self-sufficient, because you had, mature leadership and that kind of thing. Then, moving on to 2019, Dean Weil was looking for a less generic title other than Honors Magazine. Okay, get this thing going the right way. I've gotten behind. Oh well. Whatever. Sorry. Anyway, so after some discussion, we decided on Areté, which is Greek, right? Excellence and virtue, for excellence and virtue. And I think that pretty much sums up the Honors College and the students and the faculty, and what we do here is to encourage excellence and virtue as well. And also, recent years, I forgot what year, 2022, Dr. Weil wanted to add perfect binding. We're not stapling anymore. It's a perfect binding. It looks like a professional magazine that you would see at the bookstore or something. So it's come a long way from here to here. And I was just very pleased and excited to be a part of that process because it was such a time of growth in the Honors College, though, that this number of students was just multiplying, and there was so much information to be reported that we just kept getting bigger and bigger. And most of the time the magazine has like 62 pages or 64 pages or something like that. I wanted to tell you about the purpose. The Honors News magazine serves several purposes. I'll just read this part. It's a way to create community by highlighting and celebrating achievements to current students, achievements of current students, faculty, staff, and alumni. In addition, it features Honors College events. It includes photos of students who've completed their theses along with titles of their projects. It includes highlights from the inauguration of Buchanan Fellows and Transfer Fellows, initiations by Phi Kappa Phi and Omicron Delta Kappa Honor Societies, and reports from the Annual Board of Visitors. It features highlights from Collage and students who have won Creative Expression Award, and recognizes the Scientia at Humanitas staff and writers at the Dean's Distinguished Essay Awards. It also spotlights alumni and friends who have established new scholarships or made contributions to the college. So one of my favorite things about Areté is that it allowed students who were interested to write a story for an award-winning magazine, and I'll get back to the award-winning part in a moment. But this story here, this cover story, was written by Rachel. And so at the time she wrote it, she didn't know it was going to be the cover story. But she did a beautiful job, and the creative visual services came up with beautiful photos. And it's just like one of my favorite issues ever. And there was another time when a different Collage editor, Rachel is the Collage editor-in-chief, a different editor-in-chief wrote a story, and it was on Ennio piano, and it also became a cover story. So I think it's a pretty cool thing when you have an opportunity to say, hey, I want to write a story, and you go maybe interview someone, and it ends up on the cover of a magazine, especially an award-winning magazine. That makes it extra special. Okay, going back to the purposes, Collage was a campus fixture for has been a campus fixture for over 50 years, and it remains a coveted source of peer validation for students' original creative works. Acceptance in Collage is competitive, but I think it's worth the effort. It boosts resumes, it's a portfolio builder, it's also a step toward publication in other journals. Such as there's a regional journal published by the University of Alabama that some of our students have been published in called Sanctuary. And I think serving on the Collage staff provides valuable experience in leadership, peer review, editing, and designing. Many of the former staff members enter into careers in publishing, writing, or design. At least one of the former editors-in-chief has become a teacher. And he founded a literary magazine for his high school. And I just heard in the last week or so that he now oversees the school's yearbook. And he was recently named an outstanding faculty member. One former editor-in-chief is associate managing editor at Penguin Random House in New York. Another former editor-in-chief is a media specialist at Vanderbilt University. And I know of a couple of former designers who are now working with as creative directors and art directors for companies. So I think it's outstanding experience if you have any interest in going into that kind of field at all. It gives you experience in leadership and all that different areas of publishing. If you have that interest, it's worth looking into. I wanted the mission of Scientia, our research journal, is to demonstrate the breadth and quality of the student research at MTSU, and to introduce young scholars into the world of peer review and publication. So it also promotes interdepartmental faculty and student collaboration, as well as public relations on and off campus. I wanted to say a little bit about the success of the honors publications for this magazine. I'm going to backtrack, sorry, if I can make this move. I don't know if that's backtracking going forward, but we've been talking about Collage. I wanted to show these pictures. I don't know, when I look at those pictures, it just looks like fun to me. And these are some pictures through the years of different Collage staff members, the student organization fair, indoors and outdoors, and their staff pictures. This is, I'm going to talk about the successes in just a moment. This is pictures of the 2 times we went to New York to receive national awards for Collage. And this is Rebecca Clifford, that's Laura's older daughter, and she was the editor-in-chief of that publication. And this is one of the older issues, one of the first time we ever got a national award. So that was several years ago. But this is one of our more recent ones. It's a Silver Crown Award, and that's Anthony, who was editor-in-chief just a few years ago. He's at Vanderbilt now. Let's see what else I got up there. This is some shots from the 50th anniversary. I don't know why Dr. Ball has a red circle around it. But we had the 50th anniversary of the building on Bell Street, and Dr. McPhee came, and there's Dr. Phillips, and these are some of the professors that through the years constantly supported Collage, and they helped get it started, some of them as well. These 3 on this left end here were active in supporting Collage from the very beginning when it first came here. They would help me find staff members and help me get submissions, and couldn't have done a whole lot without their help. A few more photos. This is the school centennial issue up there. It was an award-winning one as well. The coded era there. Okay, that's Scientia et Humanitas. These are a couple of the people who won awards for their essays. They received cash prizes, and their essays are listed as award-winning essays. These are a few of the staff photos, different semesters, different years, so I think that looks fun too. All right. Here's the Honors Magazine. We had a lot of success with that. The National Collegiate Honors Council is, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but they have I'll just say that they have a competition for the magazines, the newsletters of all the different honors colleges all over the place, and I guess it's all over the country. And so in recent years, we've had a lot of success with winning recognition from the National Collegiate Honors Council. In 2012, 2014, 2016, and 2022, our magazines won first place in the nation. Second place in 2008, 2010, 2020, and third place in 2018. And we were only allowed to submit our magazine every other year because they want to kind of spread the love around, and so they didn't want us to have all the awards. But on the years that we were not submitting our magazine, Dr. Vile and I got to participate in that process of judging some of those magazines. But it was just, it was a good feeling, to know we put so much work into it and to have that kind of success. With Collage, as to say, it was a member of the Columbia Scholastic Press Association. You can see the awards here. This is the Gold Crown Award, Silver Crown Award. And that's one of the Honors Magazine awards there, first place. The Columbia Scholastic Press Association, which is out of Columbia University in New York, recognizes excellence in student journalism. And so every single year that Collage has been under the auspices of the Honors College, Collage has earned a gold medalist certificate. It's sort of a critique. They critique you in many different areas and how good your content is and how good your design is and that kind of thing. And so we always, every single time, got a gold medalist certificate. But it was not until 2007, after Collage had been published for 40 years, Collage won its first ever Columbia Scholastic Press Association Silver Crown Award. It only took 40 years. But now, since it's on the auspices of the Honors College, it has now won 6 Silver Crown Awards and 3 Gold Crown Awards, which is their highest award. The recognition is as the best in student journalism, and which adds value to what our students are doing. If you say, I worked on a national award-winning magazine, that's a lot more impressive than just saying, oh yeah, we had this little rinky-dink magazine. Let's see. Just wanted to mention some of the other ways that students can be recognized. There are submissions to Collage. If they are outstanding, they might receive a Creative Expression Award. The staff chooses about 4 to 6 of those each semester for the art, photography, video, short stories, and that kind of thing. And those awards were established during Dr. Mathis's tenure, and they were one of them was the literature awards were to honor Dr. Martha Hickson. She is, and one of those are her pictures. She was one of the instrumental people in bringing Collage over to the Honors College, and she was very supportive all through the years. And then there was also an award for the best visual. It was in memory of Dr. Lon Newell. He was a beloved art professor here on campus. Scientia at Humanitas, we don't know of any awards that we could win with that, but students who submit to it can win the Dean's Distinguished Essay Award, and Dr. Vial and Dr. Phillips select those best essays for that. These publications, I don't even know what time it is, okay, there's an online all of these are available online. We've got some copies here, and the ones on that table there you're welcome to take. But there's an online archive. If you go to the Honors College website and you click on the publication link on the left side, it'll take you to the different publications, and it's just an archive of all of them. I just want to say that I feel like the honors publications fit perfectly with the mission of the Honors College because I think they provide valuable life-changing opportunities for students. They encourages them to stretch themselves, to take on leadership, to be creative, and just to take advantage of every opportunity offered to them. And as I said in the very beginning, I got to work with amazing people. I would have done it for free if I could have paid my bills that way. I was very passionate about it, and I was just very thankful for that experience. And thankful to be able to pass it on to Robin. So I'm going to let Rachel come and talk a little bit about her experience. She's the editor-in-chief of Collage, and she's had experience with other publications as well.
Thank you. And I'm going to set myself a timer because if I don't, I might ramble on way too long. First of all, my name is Rachel Booher. I am a student here at MTSU. I'm a Japanese major with minors in English, Honors, and Global Studies. I have served with Collage for 5 semesters, not consecutive because I was in Japan for a year, so I had to kind of skip that 1 year, but now I'm back and I'm editor-in-chief this semester. And I've also had experience with writing a few articles for Areté, the Honors magazine. So I guess I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about my first experiences with publications on MTSU campus. So, well, maybe a little bit before that too. So I've always been a lover of literature, of poetry, of stories, of writing. I've written since I was very, very young. I think I wrote my first poem at maybe 6 or 7. And so that's kind of what I've always loved is literature. And I've never really branched outside of literature before coming to MTSU. My first semester with Collage, I was on the literature staff, and so I wasn't really sure exactly what that was going to look like at first. I knew that students submitted many different pieces, prose, poetry, and then we had different categories for visual. We had art, we had photography, we had video, we had audio. But my job was going to be solely focused on literature that semester. I was not prepared for some of the things I was going to have to do that semester. I think that semester we received over 300 submissions, and I think over 200 of them were literature pieces, which, if you know anything about Collage or you've served on it at all, you know that you have only about a week to review and judge pieces, and then you have one more week, which right now we're in the editing part of the pieces that are selected for the magazine. So it was, honestly, for my first semester, kind of brutally intense, but I have learned so much from that. And I'd say that over 50% of my reason for still serving on Collage is because I equivocally love being able to read and see the type of art that is created within this school. It gives me a glimpse into what is also created in the outside world, and it's also part of the reason why I switched one of my minors from business to English, and now I have applied for graduate school and am hoping to pursue a master's degree in English. Because part of me just felt really sad about not being able to read any more books or to delve into the artistic world of publications or literature. So from that point on, I stuck with Collage. But I was approached one semester and asked, Rachel, would you be willing to write an article for Areté? And I'm like, I've never written an article before, but sure, I will do that. And I believe that the first article I wrote was with Dr. Jazz. So she lives in California, so we did our interview by Zoom, but I have to tell you that she is one of the most incredible people that I have ever spoken to. And her story was honestly so moving. It changed my perspective on a lot of things. So this is her. If you get a chance, we have several issues here. Take a look, take one home. She is an incredible person. This gave me even more perspective on the world of publications because it allowed me to not only get a glimpse into somebody else's world, but then write about it and allow other people to read those experiences. And experience them for themselves. And so I went on to write, I believe, 3 or 4 more articles that are in various issues of the magazine. And it allowed me to discover talents within myself that I didn't know I had. I find that even though I love reading poetry, that maybe my talent might be more for writing publications, articles, and short stories, maybe even novels, something longer. I think that publications aren't just an opportunity for me to discover things about myself, but it's also a way for other students to discover things about other people. It's a glimpse into somebody else's world. When you read articles about people that have overcome difficulties, people that have inspiring stories, people that you can just read someone's normal journey. And you're like, I've done that before. Maybe that you can see a little bit of yourself within those people. So, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that being published feels great, but my perspective on publications at this point is that I enjoy reading about others more, writing about others more, and being able to witness the development of other people's artistic creativity more than being the focus myself now. I guess, who in this room has ever been published, whether it's poetry or essays or research, anyone maybe seen your picture published? It feels pretty good to see yourself on that page. And those are things that you can utilize in the future as well, because you can put that on your resume, you put that on your CV, you can state that, oh, I've been published by such and such journal, or I've been published by such and such magazine, or I had an interview and then I was published by such and such book company. But if you have ever written a poem, written an essay, a research paper, and it doesn't matter what research paper, it doesn't have to be science, I've written a thesis and done 2 research grants with Eureka, all in a literary category. You can publish things like that. If you've ever created art, performed experiments, if you've studied abroad, if you've overcome difficulties, received an award or a scholarship, or served in the community, those are all things that are worth publication about yourselves. I think that those stories would not just be, like, they may seem dull to yourself. I know for me, I am the hardest person to write about for myself. It is so, like, when someone tells me, write a personal statement, I have to write about myself now. What do I say? I think that there are people out there who need to hear about your stories. They need to hear about your works. They need to experience the things that you've experienced through your words. I think that Miss Marsha put it very well when she said that that publications have life-changing, valuable opportunities. And I think that those opportunities start with your own stories. And I think that the Honors College offers so many different opportunities within Collage, within Scientia, within Areté, to be part of that. So I highly encourage you to be part of that if you can. And that's what I've got.
And I stayed within time.
Oh, yeah, how about that? I
Yeah.
get to.
Or were you okay.
You do it.
So some of you may not know this, but this lecture series has actually been the source of 2 previous books. We did a book in 2011 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of MTSU, and that included actually a chapter by Dr. Mathis, who's the previous dean, on the Honors College, which was very helpful to me. And then subsequently, we had a semester where we did prison writings. Martin Luther King, I did this chapter on Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and there were others that was also published as a book. And then this year, actually, instead of a printed Areté for the fall, we put together a book. It's a little like a yearbook, and it has a lot of color, a lot of pictures. I don't think it has a picture of this class because I think we had to get it to the publisher before that. But if you're interested in learning about the Honors College, it's $35, which I think is pretty reasonable. That includes the sales tax. You can get it either at our office or you can buy a copy over in the bookstore. They're helping us with that. And I think what we want to do now is let Marsha and Rachel come to the front and see if there are any questions to answer.
Does anyone have any questions? Maybe you're interested in some of these publications.
Is there a Collage publication every semester, or is it year-based?
It's twice a year.
Twice a year, every semester? Okay.
It has been every semester since I've been on it, and I think
Yeah.
that since it's been around, yeah.
Is it the same for the Scientia at Humanitas?
It's 1 a year.
That's
One
one
a
year,
year.
yeah. And actually, if you want to, I'll pass around some copies of the magazine and Collage, that way you can take a look. And these, if you can take home with you as well. So, if there's something in there that catches your eye.
And Collage, Robin, is moving to online, is that correct?
Yes, something I
Yes.
think I forgot to
Yeah,
mention.
let's talk about that a little, because I know some of my board members are not altogether happy with that change.
I mean, I have to be honest, my heart's a little sad too.
Yeah.
I like having a physical copy of a book. But this semester will be the first semester that Collage will be completely digital. I think that while my heart is a little bit sad to not have the physical copy in hand, I think that is going to be a really good point for visual items, because I know I'm not a photography student. I don't do a lot of art in the way of painting or sculpture, but I know that when you get into colors and tones and photography and then of course video and audio, that things need to be a certain way. They need to be programmed a certain way for print because the way that it looks on a computer screen is not the way that it's going to look in a printed issue. And so things that are black and white may conflict with a certain design element that we have within the magazine, especially in previous semesters when like you have really dark colors like this. So a black and white photo may end up being really dark on the inside of a black page like that. However, having a digital copy means that we're not going to have that issue this semester. Even if we had a darker background, the photos and the video and the artistic works are still going to pop out because it's programmed a little bit differently. I don't know a lot about technology as much. I don't know as much as I should. I wish I knew more. But that is something that I have learned, that you have to do things a certain way for it to look a certain way when you print it versus if you have a digital copy. So there are pros and cons to having the digital copy. It's a great thing for visuals, but it's just a sad thing for me who enjoys the smell of books and holding them in my hand. So.
It'll be a huge plus for the videos and the music and things like that, that rather than having to scan a QR code, which we'll see in some of those copies, you can just click play and watch them.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I always felt a little bit sad for our videos and audios when we had to publish a sad little QR code with the name and title with the author or creator by them. And now we can actually embed the file into the digital copy, so you'll actually see a link with like a photo of some sort on there. So we can be a little bit more upgraded there.
What other questions do you have?
I have a question. Since you've gotten so many awards over the years, have other schools, other honors colleges who publish contacted you and asked for mentoring? That's one question. And number two, now that you've made the change, are you in contact with other schools that have already made this change, and how's it working out? So it's kind of a past and a future.
Well, for the past part, I'll talk about that. And there were certain years when we were invited over to Lipscomb, and they have workshops for publication type students or newspaper staffs and that kind of thing. There are students interested in publications, and we have been invited multiple times and taken students over there with us as well. And they got to kind of mentor some of the younger students, the high school students, to help them. It's been several years since we've done that, but that was pretty much the only thing I can think of as far as.
Marsha, we've been invited to be on a panel at NCHC this year
Good.
because Robin
Yeah,
did more judging than I did, so she's going to go, I believe, on our behalf.
good.
But she'll, be able to tell a little bit about that, and maybe you can say something about our book there too.
I guess to answer the future part, I am not aware of anything as of right now in regards to reaching out to other schools. Since this is our first semester being fully digital, I think that maybe we'll see how it goes, and if we have the success, we probably could end up reaching out to other schools. I want to make sure this semester that it is still just as reputable as past semesters, even despite not having a physical copy. So that's kind of what we're doing more so this semester, I think.
But I think even just within our own university setting, I think that the publications are really valuable for our students. I think, I'm sure Rebecca would say that she learned an awful lot from being editor-in-chief, and as you go through the staff and stay several semesters, you know more about it, and you mentor those younger ones coming up and talk to them. But we've had so many students that were part of the staff that went out and did things that I'm just very, very proud of. So.
I can honestly say that every semester, all the 4 of the 5 semesters, not even, like I was on literature staff. This is my first semester as editor-in-chief, and I can say that the creation of a student magazine, this is a magazine that is for students, created by students, and everything within the magazine was also created by students. This is a completely volunteer-based magazine. However, the work that goes into it is very real. There is a design team, there's a visual team, there's a literature team. We have a person who manages social media and websites. I have an associate editor who helps me with things that maybe I can't get to. And so skills like knowing how to use InDesign are necessary. People who have contact and skills with social media are necessary. And you learn about how to approach pieces differently. Like this was my first semester judging visual pieces, because I always had judged literary pieces. And I was blown away. I'm like, I've been missing stuff. Like, I've been missing it. Like, there are some amazing talents on this campus, and I'm like, I wish I could do that, which maybe I can if I really try, but I have my eggs in a basket elsewhere. But it's just really interesting to see the pieces, and also being able to hear other people's opinions once they are judged. So it gives you a very well-rounded experience. And I think this not just Collage, I think that any of these publications give you a very well-rounded experience and different perspectives that maybe you wouldn't have received otherwise.
So what does judging submissions for a publication look like?
So we have about a week before we have what we call our selection meeting. Depending on the submissions, visual team typically judges visual pieces, literary team judges literary pieces such as prose and poetry. And then typically associate editor and then me as editor-in-chief, we judge them all. So at first, my first semester, it was a lot about personal preference because I wasn't exactly sure how to judge a piece. If we had questions about content, we would typically ask our, seniors, people who had come before us. Things that we look for literary style, we look for creativity, we look for adjectives, we look for punctuation, we look for grammar. At least that's on the literature side of it. And I've seen some really incredible things, like people submitting sculptures and blown glass and other things that are just very, very intuitive. And but starting out, it was a lot based on personal opinion, but then it developed. It became something more from an artistic standpoint. It was like, not so much like, I may not personally like this piece, but was it well done? And so that was a skill that I hadn't had before. And this was a place where I was able to develop that skill, because there's a lot of jobs, actually most jobs, where you have to approach something objectively, and your personal opinion has nothing to do with it.
I remember the early days of Collage when the staff was small and we were all kind of new at it, and I can remember staff members saying, well, I voted for that because I like mermaids. And I thought, what does that have to do with it? It's not about what you like, it is about how well is it done, how well is it done.
Yeah. And then with the visual pieces, like what was the medium that was used, what was the canvas, what was the way to communicate, how does it appeal to your visual senses? There's a lot of questions that I ask now that I did not have prior to being on staff, and I definitely am grateful for those skills now.
I hope you'll check your publications out, and if you're interested, we'll be around for a little while for more questions. Thank you.